we discovered that there was great joy in giving. At some point of time, we realized that it wasn't about giving, but it was about fulfillment. It was about discovering about ourselves that we didn't know about. And this was as much about getting as it was about giving.
With today's youth, they are constantly looking for meaning and purpose in life. In fact, many want to join organizations that are creating social impact.
I've realized that unless one has fulfilling relationships, it does become very difficult to be happy. But I think that's where, all your relationships really kick in. To think about life, the standard way that people think about life, which is in phases of, learning, earning, and giving. I believe that one should live life with all three things in each phase of one's life. Learning should be continuous. One should have the ability to actually make sure that one is earning at all phases, including, having a nest egg, which is built so that even at the end of your life, your nest egg is taking care of you. And I think one should give as early as possible.
Hi, Amit. Welcome to our next episode of the Happiness Hour. Thank you for being here. Amit is the chairperson and founder of Bain Capital India office and was part of the Asia's leadership team for over a decade. Prior to that, he's worked with DSP Merrill Lynch for a couple of decades. Amit also has co-founded ATE Chandra Foundation with his wife Archana, a lovely person, and works closely with many nonprofits and governments to design and scale solutions that impact the most marginalized population. Amit has served on the board of some of the largest companies, including Tata Sons, Piramal Enterprises, Genpact, MCure, L&T Finance, and more. Welcome, Amit, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you for that generous introduction, Ashu, and more than anything, thank you for inviting me and being a good friend. Thank you.
Pleasure. So let's kick into the first very obvious question. You wear multiple hats, roles, not just in the private, but also the public sector, where supporting the government is clearly a big part of your life, and the social sector. So you've really got yourself across many aspects of society. Now, given these multiple faceted roles that you play, what are your values and philosophies that keep you rooted through all of this?
So, Ashu, I think the core of my values actually come from people who have really inspired me, and I would say that some of them are, people who have lived in our times, and there are some who have really, been incredible spiritual leaders who have lived hundreds of years before us. A person whose teachings have touched me enormously is Guru Nanak, and a lot of, I think, what I am and how I try to live my life is based on his philosophy, and his philosophy is based on a few pillars. It's Ekomkar, which is which can mean different things to different people, but to me it means oneness, universal brotherhood, sisterhood, one truth, Kirat Kar, which is work hard, work honestly, one Chak, which is give generously, and Nam Jap, which is always remember the Lord, both through good and through bad times. And so, those three simple pillars of Guru Nanak have been a guiding, framework for me ever since I discovered him. There have been a number of other influences, in my life. At some point of time, I was really influenced by an incredible man, who's probably been one of the biggest philanthropists of our times, Chuck Feeney. His money went on to, to become one of the biggest private equity firms of our time, General Atlantic Partners. And he pretty much gave away 99% of his wealth after creating an incredible, franchise called the Duty Free Stores, something that, all of us have always, been in it some part of time in our yearly lives. I was when I read his story, I was truly inspired by the way he has lived his life after having created all his wealth. And so he's had big impact on both Archana and me, that you can always create wealth, but what you do with it and how you go about doing giving the wealth, I think can be an enormously fulfilling process. And I think so that has been a big part of my inspiration, as has been Jamshedji Tata, who's probably, I think, been, I would say, amongst the 2 or 3 most inspirational Indians who's lived according to me, because again, he not just straddled the business world, but also by virtue of his philanthropic actions, I think showed how Indians could actually shape society and impact generations to come via their actions. And so I was truly privileged to be, as you mentioned, a trustee of the Tata Trust and therefore custodian of his wealth, and see how that could be used in a proper way. And I see, as I've seen some of these people, up close, via, in case of Jamshedji Tata, his trust, and via Guru Nanak, via his teachings, and by Chuck Feeney, I've had the pleasure of meeting with him. I've, truly been deeply inspired and feel privileged to actually have been shaped, by the learnings that, they have actually conducted their lives and showed us the way on how to actually conduct ours.
Thank you so much for that. That is, very big shoes that you've taken on to fill, and I wish you all the very best, because I know that you're going great guns with it, and I know you will continue, because whatever you take on, you do succeed at that and do well. Moving on, giving is a very big part of your life. Having embraced all these philosophies of oneness and giving, and seeing how to uplift and make a real difference in society in India, and be I would say, more like a torchbearer as well. Yes, there are many other leaders who've done it, but you've taken on a very, significant role in this. What really gives you happiness?
Yeah. So, Ashu, I think that's also been a little bit of journey. Giving for, Archana and me has always been a way of our life, right from the start. Both of us don't come necessarily from wealthy families, and by wealth, I mean, we come from wealthy families in terms of values. We come from families which have, truly blessed us with great education. But we were very clear right from the start that we basically, make sure that some part of our income would always be kept for giving back. And so that's always been a part of what we've done. And just as we've basically, grown our desires, our material desires, we basically grew our, our desire to give. And I think that was probably one of the most sensible things we did, because right from the start, we discovered that there was great joy in giving. At some point of time, we realized that it wasn't about giving, but it was about fulfillment. It was about discovering, things about ourselves that we didn't know about. And this was as much about getting as it was about giving. And at some point of time, I think for both of us, we realized that it was actually really possible to start capping our needs rather than keep, just mindlessly expanding them. At that point of time, the giving then started, kept expanding, and the consumption at some point of time started plateauing out. And that's why today, I think, while, we are recognized as somewhat torchbearers was the word you used, I still feel that the amount that we give is modest. Maybe the percentage we give as a percentage of our income is probably very high relative to most other professionals or even wealth creators. The amounts are still somewhat modest in a society where a lot of wealth is getting created. And, I think we don't therefore look at it as anything spectacular.
You put it very beautifully that you've solved for it selfishly, although it is selfless to, the way you are serving. You've been blessed to find, both you and Archana, to find meaning and purpose much earlier in life than most people do. Most people struggle, and with today's youth, they are constantly looking for meaning and purpose in life. In fact, many want to join organizations that are creating social impact. Any suggestions to the people as to how they can actually find meaning and purpose when sometimes life seems so caught up with all the stresses and fear? As you said, it's that peer pressure. There's so much else that bombards us. Amidst that, how did you stay anchored on that vision of yours?
I think that's a great question, Ashu, and I think the answer to your question lies in your question. I think we got truly lucky that we got exposed to a set of experiences and people that gave us the opportunity to discover meaning and purpose, early on. And let me explain that. I think, I've had the extraordinary privilege of having great mentors in my life, all through my life. A lot of my well-meaning mentors would tell me that to think about life the standard way that people think about life, which is in phases of, learning, earning, and giving. I today believe that that's truly a poor framework to think about life. I believe that one should live life with all three things in each phase of one's life. Learning should be continuous. One should have the ability to actually make sure that one is earning at all phases, including, having a nest egg, which is built so that even at the end of your life, your nest egg is taking care of you. And I think one should give as early as possible. And why that becomes important is basically very early on. As I said, when I started in my career itself, I was fortunate that I started getting exposed as a hard-nosed banker to people from the social sector. Part of it was because, Archana was engaged with the sector, and part of it was basically because, as I said, Archana and I both started giving a part of our income very early on. When a lot of people told us, you're too early to do this, first build your nest egg. But we said, no, we want to do this along with, building a nest egg. We only bought our first house 18 years ago, when around the time our daughter was born. But well before that, we were actually on our giving journey. And so we started actually meeting really interesting people and having interesting experiences, getting to see what society was really about, and getting to understand issues and problems very, very early on in our professional journeys and our own developmental journeys. In fact, the first board that I was invited to join was not a corporate board. I've had the privilege of serving on the boards of some of India's largest and most prestigious companies. But the first board that I was invited to serve on was actually Akanksha. The
Okay.
third board that I was asked to serve on was actually Give India. The second board that I was asked to join was that of my own bank. And so by my third board, I was already, on two not-for-profits and one for-profit. And there was a point of time in my life when I was on, I think over 10 boards, half of which were not-for-profits and half were not-for-profits. And so I think by accident, landed up actually having this parallel life where I had exposure to both worlds right through my late 20s and 30s. And I think that was a very shaping experience to me. So if I go back to your question, I think what people should do is if they get advice like, build your nest egg, think about giving back once you really get older and you're financially secure, please ignore such advice. Please start living your life more holistically as early as possible. Please travel the world. And by world, I don't mean first travel to England and America. Please first travel to Latur and Beed and, Chhatrapur and, Jharkhand, because the world begins with places around us. And, visit municipal schools in your backyard, visit a public hospital, close by, and start understanding, what the, 90% of population that typically resides behind you in economic strata, what their reality is. Go and see how life in a slum is and understand that it is very, very shaping as an experience. And I think that once one starts doing that and does that as early as possible, I think purpose will follow. It will make you more purposeful in your work as well. Even as a professional, it will make you more purposeful. You will want to earn money with a different vigor.
So you've given people another inspiration altogether. But this really, what you said reminds me of what my parents used to say, barkat. When you have it, you share it. And the more you give it, the more it comes back. Doing so many roles, traveling for each one, having multiple hats and responsibilities. How do you balance your professional and personal life and your well-being? It's all of that. How do you really, and you stay smiling all the time. I don't ever see you not smiling.
If you think I have a sense of balance, I think that's illusionary. I don't think.
I should have asked
I don't think.
Archana that question, I think.
Yeah, I think she will disagree with you as well. You're always constantly trying to find a sense of balance. It's a bunch of balls you're juggling in the air and trying to figure it out. She does think at various points of time, I have two jobs and I should really have one, and and what gives is really my personal well-being, to answer your question. That but I really feel that I drive enormous satisfaction from both, and I feel that actually being in one also helps enormously make impact in the other. So, which is the reason I try to do both at the same time, be in the corporate world and work in the social sector. So, and so I've tried to find ways to, bring some method to the madness, which includes, have a rhythm to how many days I spend in one and how many days I spend in the other, and incredibly, kind and dedicated team, which helps basically manage all that madness, from my executive assistant Tina to my CEO at the foundation and vertical heads and everyone else. So without them, all of this madness would basically truly descend into chaos, which would have no impact. So I think I do feel that it's very important to have leverage. It's very important to have process. It's very important to have leverage. Leverage by leverage, I mean people. Without that, all of this would not work. I mean, I'm able to do what I'm able to do at Bain, which is step back and really spend as little time as I spend there, which is a couple of days a week, because I think I was fortunate. I was able to really hire high quality people right from the start, groom them to take on responsibility, transition responsibility to them, and not really interfere, and be there for them when in areas that they want me to help them in, as opposed to areas that I want to help them in. And I think that has worked well. So I really play more of a chairperson role than a CEO kind of a role. And I try to do the same thing now at the foundation. I think that's the only way I'm able to straddle both worlds, which is, I think all of this is only possible if you have highly dedicated, competent people. And what you're really doing is providing guidance, and they're providing you leverage. Without that, none of this works.
So, what would you say is the secret sauce for your full life? A lot of people want to have it all but can't, and you truly do have it all. So, what would you say is your secret sauce?
I do count my blessings every day. I do count my blessings, Ashu, every day. There isn't a day that I wake up that I don't begin with a prayer. Okay. And it's a prayer of gratitude. I have never, of course I go through challenges, but I've always felt a deep sense of gratitude for everything that I have been blessed with. Look, all of us face challenges. There are health issues people have at different points of time. There will be there'll be families go through problems, where parents will age. There will be businesses that go up or down. But I think the important thing in all of this is what I have realized is we still really have to have a step back and realize how fortunate we all are to really be at that top 1% of society where, we don't have to worry about food on the table, healthcare in, hospitals, or if we desire to basically get access to, anything that we really truly desire, we can ultimately get access to all of that. And as long as we have purpose, right, we have the ability to basically use the time that's available to us to give us the satisfaction by deploying that time properly to, make the most of that purpose. What more can one hope for in life? There will always be challenges. I've realized that life goes through, there's so many ups and downs. So I have a lot of gratitude in my life for everything that I'm blessed with, despite everything. And there are good days and bad days. But I try to make sure I count my blessings every day.
Thank you for that. And one last question as we go. For, I would say, all the listeners, happiness, meaning, purpose, anything, one nugget.
Yeah. So, Ashu, I think we've talked a lot about purpose, but I would say the one other thing that is really important is fulfilling relationships. Everyone who knows me well generally looks at me as a relationship person. Even now, I have relationships with deep, enduring relationships with people from every phase of my life, going back school, 50 years ago to, engineering college, 35, 40 years ago, my career at Larsen and Toubro, to, my friends at DSP, and I've really enduring relationships with people from every phase of my life, friends in the US and friends here. And I would say the most important of all those relationships are the ones that I have with, with my wife and my daughter and my, other loved ones in the family, my sister and mother and everyone else. So I would say I've realized that unless one has fulfilling relationships, it does become very difficult to be happy. One can tend to become very lonely because we talked about challenges. There are challenges which are there every day. The two things that really help you overcome these challenges is you need a sense of purpose, because that helps you, be busy during the day. But there's a time when, you'll still feel lonely. You'll come at night. You'll need someone to talk to, etc. And we talked about mentors earlier. But I think that's where, all your relationships really kick in. And if you have fulfilling relationships, great spouse, a few members of your family, some really good friends, who can pull you up when you're low, hold you back if you're doing something wrong, I think that can be really, really powerful. And I think I'm really blessed that I've done, two things. One is I've really invested in my relationships in a very deliberate manner over all my life. And the second is I've got a lot back out of them. And I feel very grateful for that. I spend a lot of time as well, making sure that, where I have relationships with people, I go out of my way to nurture them. But I'm a big believer in the power of relationships. I tell people that please make sure that you invest in enduring relationships.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experiences and learnings with us. Really appreciate it. And I wish you have a great day and wish you all the very best with all your endeavors.
Thank you so much, Ashu. Thank you again for having me, and all the best to all your listeners.
Thank you.